This ecom founder was about to shut down his entire business after burning through 300K in just 11 months without a single profitable day. And he called us as a last resort, ready to liquidate everything. And in 17 days, he hit his first profitable day ever. And what we've discovered in his ad account will probably shock you, because these are the 3 mistakes that are killing 90% of the brands that I audit, no matter if they're doing 50K a month or 500K a month. And here's the thing that nobody expected. The fixes that saved his business weren't some advanced scaling tactics or expensive tools. They were fundamental structural mistakes that most agencies and brands completely overlook. And if you're spending serious money on ads without consistent profitability, you're probably making at least 2 of these same errors. So let me paint a picture of the brand that actually contacted us. So they're selling premium men's clothing specifically designed for guys with a dad bod. Think a bit like True Classic, but more specifically targeted. They have a great product, solid reviews, and a decent website. But the biggest thing is that t-shirts are basically a commodity, which means that messaging has to tap into your identity and a self-image, not just features, because you're just selling a t-shirt, right? So that's exactly where the identity hooking system that we created comes into play, because people don't buy the t-shirts, they buy the identity of someone who looks and feels confident. But this brand was completely missing the psychological triggers, and it was bleeding them dry basically. So after auditing their ad account, we saw 3 big mistakes that I see with almost every single ad account that I audited. So the first one was that they were running actually multiple campaigns. As you can see, these ones were all running at the same time, which is basically diluting the profits and also your ad spend, right? Because you're not only competing against other people, you're competing against yourself. So it's the same as being in an art auction. You're not only competing to the other people that want to buy the piece of art, but you're also competing against multiple yous, which is not good, because your cost per acquisition will rise, your ad costs in general will rise, so your CPM, your CPC, etc., which will make it more expensive for you to acquire customers, and that is not a good thing. And certainly, especially right now after Meta's Andromeda update, running more than 2 or 3 campaigns creates a massive overlap, which drives up the CPM and basically confuses the algorithm about where to spend your budget. So ad spend goes up by a lot, which is one of the biggest mistakes that I see in multiple ad accounts, that they're running multiple campaigns instead of just 1 or 3 campaigns tops. And then the second mistake that I see a lot is that basically, as you can see, there was only 1 ad creative that was taking up all the spend. So I see it a lot as well with brands that try to scale, is that they're dependent on only 1 creative. As you can see, just like by scrolling down, you're always seeing the same ad creative. So those ads usually tend up taking over like 80-90% of the spend, which is not enough spend for the other creatives to basically test and see if they're working. And the thing is, it was not beneficial, right? You can see the ROAS was not great because you're just constantly duplicating that ad set with the same ad. But the thing is right now is that an ad, if you have your full market, if you look at it as a circle, 1 ad is 1 circle within that circle. Another ad is targeting another avatar, another stage of awareness. So you need multiple ads to basically scale profitably. But the thing with this brand was, and with a lot of brands, probably your brand as well, is that you're relying on just like 1 or 2 creatives to scale. And this is basically creative suicide, because that 1 creative will ultimately fatigue and your entire ad account will crash. So they were not able to find new winners, which is not good, because Meta will put all the budget inside of 1 ad, 1 basket, which is not good. And one of the third things that I also saw was that they're basically not only creating different campaigns for different styles of ads, which is in general not a good idea, but the thing was also that they were running bid campaigns, which is not a good thing. We do not recommend running bid campaigns, and the reason is because you're telling Meta to find customers at a certain spend level. This is not good because it's not profitable in the long term, because you're basically forcing Meta to find people at a certain cost. So by doing that, you limit actually Facebook, you limit the data you're getting, because every single ad account that we've seen that are running with bid caps never have the same cost per acquisition when you turn off the bid caps. And there's a super normal reason, is because that you're forcing Meta to find those people, while the real cost per acquisition might be something completely different, right? So that is super important to note as well, is to never basically run bid cap campaigns, because in general, it doesn't help at all, right? You're just forcing it. Your data is not real data, because you might think that a cost per acquisition, for example, is like $40, while in reality it can be up to like $80 or $90. And so after those findings, we basically went ahead, implemented our identity hooking system, and the first thing that we actually did was consolidate the full ad account, right? So if we go over to the page, the first campaign that we launched was the sales CT, which is basically creative testing. So we took all of their winning ad sets inside of here, as you can see here, 001 main, which is still getting the most amount of spend, but that's completely fine, right? The reason why we do this is because we found out that I think around 11 or like 10 ads, yeah, so 9 ads were actually performing pretty well. So we just take them because we know that these are working. We launch the campaign, which already reduces the overlap, which basically makes the ad costs or drop, right? And we just let them run, see how they perform while we're doing research. And the biggest thing right now is of course doing research. And the thing that we found was that there was one headline that was actually working. But the thing is, the people that were getting or giving the reviews were actually an older demographic, so not necessarily younger, mid-30 demographic. They were more leaning towards 50 plus. That's also a thing that we saw in the spend of Meta. So we basically took the winning headline, started testing different avatars. As you can see right here, the avatar testing, different airdrops, different types of formats, basically to make sure that we're able to test a lot of different avatars, different layers. And so as you can see, the main ad set is still getting the most amount of spend, but it's super important to note that incrementality is at play here, which I'll talk about later as well. And so the second thing that we did was actually identity-driven creatives. So instead of just testing random ads, we basically built psychological triggers of their customers. So basically guys want to look better, feel better while wearing the product. And we started running those ads, right? So we are testing different headlines, different structures, different avatars, different hooks, even using AI to create videos. And that way the whole Meta algorithm got fed with the right signals to match ads with the right mindset at the right time. Right? So that's super important that you have a lot of creative diversity inside of your ad account, because then sometimes it can literally happen that one ad that is not working for 2 weeks might take off and take over full spend, because you're basically targeting different pockets with different ads. And the third thing that we did was actually introduce a retargeting campaign and a scaling campaign. And yes, you heard that right, a retargeting campaign. It's probably one of the most controversial topics ever inside of the Facebook ad space. As you can see, the frequency is also 6, which is super high. But the thing is, I saw that while doing the audit, right, over a long period, was actually the fact that the frequency in general, as you can see, was super high. So it was always above 2, right? Or 1.5, which for us signals that it's retargeting. The reason why this one is at a 2 is basically we were testing a catalog ad, which basically took it way too high, which is not good. But so that signaled to me that there was a lot of retargeting at play. I saw that also in the back end, that the frequency of people buying on a first visit was super low. They had to have multiple visits. And so if we do the breakdown here for the audience segments, which is always super important to look at, right, is that most of the spend was also going to engage audience and existing customers. So that is not good, because you're not excluding them properly. And on top of that, you're retargeting people. ROAS for them was pretty high as well. And obviously it's because it's a t-shirt, so it's not something that people will generally buy super fast, right? It's a thing that people have to see multiple times. That's also a thing that we saw with True Classics, is that they have like 5 different ads that are constantly spending and have been running for over a year, which is super bottom of funnel, because obviously it's a t-shirt. It's super hard to distinguish a t-shirt, one brand from another brand, right? So that's where incrementality comes into play. And so that's why we basically introduced a retargeting campaign, because I just saw that a lot of spend was actually going towards the retargeting. The frequency was higher. And so as you can see right here, this one was taking a lot of spend. And so that's the incrementality that I'm talking about, which is a beautiful thing to see in this ad account, is that the creative testing campaign is just around break even, right? But the positive thing is, this is doing the heavy lifting for the retargeting campaign and the winning ads only. So what I mean by the incrementality is that with the creative testing, you're trying to find new people in new pockets, new avatars with your messaging. Usually, most of the times backed on the data, is the fact that not everybody is actually converting the first visit. So you introduce retargeting and you do your winning scaling campaigns. The reason why you do it is because that way it finds the same customers who went to your website but didn't buy, but eventually retarget them. And we're using a super cool tool for that, which is Marpipe. We're not sponsored by them by any means, but it's basically a cool thing that instead of just running a dynamic carousel ad. And that's the only thing you have to do with retargeting is a dynamic carousel ad, nothing else. Marpipe actually makes the images of the catalogs into real ads. And so with a price, with a headline, etc. But it's an additional layer of the dynamic ads. And the reason why you use dynamic carousels or just like catalogs is because it matches the products that people saw on your website. So that is super important, and that's the beauty of the incrementality. You can see that this one is feeding into this and this one into this. So that's one of the biggest things, is that if you see that your frequency is high, back in your backend data, you see that a lot of people are taking more time to actually convert, launch retargeting ads on a super low budget, because as you can see, it can bring in a lot of money. I'm releasing a video, which is the next video, which will talk specifically about retargeting, because it's super important. It's one of the biggest myths that a lot of people talk about, that you don't have to run retargeting ads, but you should, right? Based on the backend data, certainly LTV wise, because this again, if people like the brand, if people like the t-shirts, they will eventually come back. And so that's why we also launched a past purchases. As you can see, it is also coasting at an okay ROAS, because that is okay, because the first initial purchase has been done. So you're able to spend less or at a lower profitability because your lifetime value is way higher. And so by implementing those three things, we basically took them from being not profitable at all to actually being profitable for the very first time in over 11 months, while they burned 300K in that time period, right? So we got them to profitable within 17 days, which is insane. And this is a beautiful example of literally how different ads in different awareness stages, they all play into each other. And the creative testing campaign might not be profitable, or they're just coasting by break even, but I know for a fact we'll be able to scale them way harder pretty soon. And so if you would turn that creative testing campaign off, the performance of everything else will basically dip, because you're feeding the other two campaigns with that creative testing campaign. And on top of that, don't be shy to launch a retargeting campaign. And that is exactly how we got them profitable before Q4, which is the biggest season for e-com brands. Now, if you need help scaling your e-com brand and you're doing over 50K a month, then click the first link down below to schedule a call with me personally. And for the rest of you, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.